Hey, we're doing it. Hey, welcome back to the Grant Whitehead show. It's not really. It's extra hours. Is that what we call this one? Extra hours. And it is the evening show. Of course, you know that we have here at on the Office Hours Comedy Network. We also have shows in the morning. There's a Wednesday morning show. There's a bunch of shows. Anyway, go to officehours.global to find out more about what we're doing. But tonight we're going to answer some questions that are coming in. If you want to send in a live question, you can use, hold on, I think I have a button here. There's a button somewhere. I can't find it for a QR code. Did we do the QR code on this show? Anyway, I'm really bad at this. Sorry, Grant. Grant will be back next week. It'll be much better. Alexander, why don't you read the first question?
I thought Courtney was reading questions.
Or actually, let's have Courtney. See how bad I am at this?
Yeah.
Peter, do you want to read the questions? All right, we'll have Courtney do it.
We're taking volunteers.
I'll read it.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. It's horrible.
All right. Let's see. I guess I'll go. Josh Kaufman. It's only one question, so hey. You know, we can all divide. I'll take a word, then you take a word. Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania says, what are some tips in managing 6K footage in Final Cut Pro?
If only there was somebody. So this came up because Peter, I was asking Peter at the beginning of the show what he edits his scout videos in. And he said because he felt that because he shot on the Blackmagic 6K, which is that camera back there, that he had to use Resolve. And you can cut it in Final Cut, but if you're using Resolve, that's fine. I just feel sorry for you. But I think the hot tip is, and I don't know enough about it because I've never used it, but Chris Hawking, who is down in Melbourne, he has a plugin called I think it's called B-Raw Toolbox. And I believe you install it and you get like full B-Raw importing and control over the LUTs and stuff right in the inspector over on the right-hand side of your Final Cut screen. But I'm more interested, Peter. What was your experience learning Resolve, and what is your history prior to using Resolve as an editor?
So, I guess I got into using Resolve. If you remember back in the early days of Office Hours, we had I forget who came on. It's the people who do the classes, and they offered a discount to people who were learning who wanted to learn how to use DaVinci Resolve. And that was right after I'd gotten my first 6K camera, and there was no such thing as a B-Raw toolbox at that point in time.
Understood. Yeah. The B-Raw toolbox, I think, is fairly new-ish, maybe a year or two old.
So now, asking my question, I had been using Final Cut to do stuff probably for about 6 years prior to that.
Okay.
And then before that, I used iMovie.
Nothing wrong with iMovie. iMovie is, honestly, the thing about editing, I will say this, having done it for a little while, I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Editing is really just the process of taking small bits of video and gluing them together. And depending on what level of control you need, iMovie can be just fine.
I was doing it with as my kids were growing up, right? Kind of those kind of movies. But the thing I never understood, because I never experienced it, is everyone was complaining mightily about the transition to NLEs. And I never understood that because iMovie is an NLE and Final Cut's an NLE, or Final Cut 10 is an NLE, and certainly DaVinci is. I don't know any better.
Yeah. And And that's really my point. I think that a lot of times you, like anything in life, you have to learn what you don't know before you learn what you need to know, right? It's like, oh, I should probably learn about that. I mean, Courtney could probably say the same thing about various prompter software. I mean, there's tell me, Courtney, are there prompter apps that are horrible to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, most of them are horrible, other than the ones that I wrote.
What did you expect him to say?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping he would say. I love.
No, there's a, the problem is with software like teleprompting, which is a live interaction, and you don't want to have a user interface that gets in the way of the teleprompter, because you need to, the prompter operator needs to know it intrinsically so that they hit hotkeys to do things, or hit buttons and switches on the controller to do things. They don't ever want to have to go to a menu to do something. So, that kind of software you have to know inside and out, and software that is designed poorly so that you have to go to a menu to make a, there's no hotkey to do something, is very poorly designed. And if something unexpected happens and you end up somewhere else in the script than where you should be, that is a disaster. Just waiting to happen. Now, you don't have that problem with editing software because it's never live usually, So if you make a mistake, you can click undo and get back to where you were. But in teleprompting software, everything comes to a halt. The talent gets a stupid look on their face and you get fired.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and I guess the biggest example would be like you bump a hotkey that takes you to a chapter, and all of a sudden and you can't go back to where you were.
You don't know, is that chapter back or is it ahead? I don't know. Do I scroll backwards to find my place? Do I scroll forwards? I don't know. And unless you're really familiar with the script, and you may not have rehearsed that script enough to know it, intrinsically, whether the place you've jumped to is before or after where you were, it can be death warmed over. I
can imagine.
All the blood drains right out of your face.
What would be your, I'm sorry, we're getting into prompter business here.
Rat hole.
Right. What was your worst experience of somebody who would go off script and you'd have to like pause, figure out where you were? You have to have great prompter stories. And by the way, prompter stories are some of the best stories.
Well, let's see. One year we were we're doing the BAFTA Awards, British American Film and Television Awards. So we were doing it out of Los Angeles. The host was supposed to be Whoopi Goldberg. And so Bruce Vilanch, famous writer of all the Oscar shows, wrote the script. I got the script. We got to the Beverly Hilton, early, got all set up. I was typing the script in and got it all loaded in. The producer didn't have a printer. We couldn't print it out. So he finally found a little thermal printer, and we printed out one copy of the script on this thermal printer. And then as we were getting ready to rehearse, Whoopi Goldberg called and had gotten sick and wasn't going to make it. Now, the entire script was written for a raucous black woman, and the only person who could step up and take over the reins of hosting was this elderly British actor who plays a lot of butlers. I can't remember his name, but fairly elderly, and had never used a teleprompter before. Of course, he had never seen the script before. This happened just like an hour before the show. We got this message in, and so we're frantically going through trying to rewrite all these, double entendre jokes written by Bruce Vilanch that Whoopi Goldberg would say about, oh, I wouldn't kick him out of it, off-color stuff, to be appropriate for a elderly British actor. So we finally got most of the things fixed. And we gave him the printout with all the changes in it. And so he's up there on the podium. The show goes live, and this is, satellite connection to London.
I was going to say, was it a live broadcast or just a live
feeds from there's live audience, audience in London, 2 cities, live satellite hookup. And so we get to about the second or third award, and I think Sean Connery was nominated for something. And I'm scrolling along in the teleprompter, and he's reading the script. And then I realize he's left the script. And I've got the right stuff up on the teleprompter, but he's saying something else. And I realized he wasn't using the teleprompter at all. He was using his printout on the podium, on the lectern there, and was not paying attention to the teleprompter at all. And he had turned 3 pages of that horrible printer paper that is thermal printer paper had stuck together. He just skipped 3 awards and is going on.
No.
And there are people waiting in London to, come out, and the nominees and everything's ready to roll. And he's just skipped 3 awards because
oh my God,
turned 3 pages, and we've got the right stuff. And we're trying to frantically tell him to read the teleprompter. He's not doing it. He's reading off the paper. Oh boy, you should have heard the comms.
I bet. That's great. That's awesome.
That is a great train wreck that has to do with the teleprompter and an actor suddenly leaving the script. And you don't know where they're going, and they've jumped ahead too, and you got to try. And now you've got the script that's in the teleprompter, but everything's out of order now because you've got to come back to those 2 awards and then jump over the stuff that you've already done. Oh, what a nightmare.
And Courtney had a front row seat. Guy, you had something you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I wanted to say this is one of the benefits of having somebody that's really knowledgeable about an app. And so just before the show, Chris was showing me some of his templates and how he does some certain things in Final Cut. And I used to teach Final Cut, so I was pretty amazed at how fast and efficient he was able to do these things. But it reminded me of an interview that we had done on the show Florida NAB, and I'm going to go ahead and roll it here. Pay attention to the last about 10 seconds.
We have a roll in. Here we go.
We have a roll in.
Facing ongoing hardware shortages. Focus on training and efficiency improvements until 2027.
Are you guys hearing the audio?
I probably shouldn't show you the Slack messages from our purchasing department, but it's getting worse. It's getting worse, yeah. And we're still able to fulfill our orders, but whenever there's shortages like this, we tend to be pretty unique in how well we're able to procure hardware. And even for us right now, it's rough. It's rough. So I don't expect it to change anytime soon. Probably not till like 2027 at the earliest. So it's just gonna be kind of tough for a while.
Yeah, I have just a pair of 64 gigs of DDR5. 6400 was like $900. That's why a good deal now.
There's some mistakes. Like 64 gig UDIM, so like registered memory, so very expensive stuff anyway. We're looking at, hey, if we can get a stick for $4,000, we're good. This is the year to, instead of spending money on your hardware, spend your money on training and like better workflows and like how can you be more efficient rather than just brute forcing it with hardware. But it's not a year for upgrades.
So
Brute forcing it.
So help me out. What was the point? He was talking about how RAM is super expensive, right? That was the main thing.
Yeah. So we purchased a computer from these guys. It was $17,000, and to Tenacious Ventures, this company I work with in Seattle, and they have these people that come in and edit Premiere using Premiere, and I just look at it and I go, wow, if we had better operators, we could not need a $17,000 computer, which is probably worth more like $22,000 now because of the RAM and the card that's in it. Everything's gone up. We bought it a year ago.
What do you think?
It's like a supercomputer.
What do you think, or what do they think rather, they're getting for this $17,000 computer? What kind of stuff are they editing?
It's got a 5090. No, well, it was purchased for more AI stuff and the stuff that you see that Socially Used doing with the Ultimate stuff and processing really harsh green screen. But what I'm seeing it used for on a day-to-day is like editors cranking out stuff. And when I look at this question, I go, hey, could you transcode that footage to, if it's B-RAW, could you just transcode it to ProRes, do your color first? Like, what's the workflow and the efficiency that you could gain by using a proper machine with a fast editor instead of just trying to brute force?
And when you say fast editor,
throwing a bunch of
a fast human being.
A fast human being. Yeah. So that's what he's saying is this is the year of training instead of just throwing a bunch of money at buying some sophisticated hardware.
I will say that when I watch other people work, I constantly see things that just drive me bonkers. Like, are you kidding? Why would you do that? It's just silly. As a matter of fact, one time I had a client call me up. I had produced a widescreen video for this woman, and I delivered it on a Friday, and I had to deliver 5 files that were going to be played. There was something about 5 and 4. It was like 5 files on a 4-up screen or something. So it was a weird blended sliced up thing. And I delivered the files, and the projectionist called me. He goes, "Hey dude, thanks a lot. Your files work great." I said, "Oh, cool." And then he called me right back and he goes, "Hey, could you do me a favor?" I go, "Yeah, what's that?" And he goes, "I'm going to send you a JPEG." And the JPEG was like the projector map that he was delivering to other vendors that were supplying videos for this event. And he said, "Could you take that JPEG and cut it up the way you cut your video up?" I go, "Yeah, what's the point?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to use your files to register my projectors in the room." Because he was having trouble figuring out which portion of the, 15,000 wide JPEG file to send to each projector. I go, "Yeah, sure." And I ran it through my system that I had built, and I sent him the file. He goes, "Oh, totally cool. Thanks for doing that." But then I got a call like 2 days later. It was early Sunday morning. It was the producer. She's like, "I need you." I go, "What?" She goes, "I need you to go to San Francisco." I go, "Why? It's Sunday morning." My other vendor can't figure out how to make the video, how to cut it up between the screens. And I'm like, "What do you want me to do? Just like walk in and say, 'Get away from the computer, I'm taking over'?" She goes, "Yes, that's what I want you to do." I go, "I'm not going to do that. That's really rude." And so eventually I did have to go in, and I looked at the way the person was doing it. And, I'm sure she was a great editor, but she didn't know this workflow. And it was really just a matter of rethinking the way she was doing stuff. And then it became super easy. But the workflow is sometimes 75% of what any good edit project is. Let's go to the next question. I think it's kind of a continuation of what we're talking about here.
All right. Next one comes in from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Alexander asks a question kind of I think he's channeling Seinfeld here. What's the deal with the track-based versus non-track-based nonlinear editors? If Final Cut is so superior for quick assembly of footage, why isn't it being used or adopted by Hollywood?
Hollywood doesn't care. I'll say this. Hollywood is dead. Ask Courtney. It's dead. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If I could, since this is the roll-in show, I'm going to play a roll-in. Let me make sure this is the right clip. Yes, it is. Let me ask, of the panel, can Fenwick play a 2-minute clip from a documentary that he is a co-executive producer on? What's that?
I said go video.
Go video. Okay, hold on. This is going to be a little rough. Make sure I have the audio piped. And take this, hit play. If you had asked Henry Ford, what did people really want? He probably would have said they wanted a faster horse. But instead of making a faster horse, he made the car, right? The automobile. Now, if you get in an early Ford and you had sat there and taken leather reins and thought that you could go like this and it would make the car go faster and pull them back and make the car stop and pull them to one side or the other and make the car turn, that sounds ridiculous because we have the steering wheel and we have the gas and the brake. The metaphor changes and the user interface changes too.
I don't begrudge people who say the timeline just doesn't work for them. They can't work out because when you use it to begin with, it's like driving a car and the things are all in the wrong place, or you try and turn left and it actually goes right. They inverted the whole, when you delete a clip, it ripples. That's an inversion of every other NLE.
What we needed to do is at least be confident as designers that we were building metaphors that actually existed in the world. So if you
this is the greatest part.
All your clips as a bunch of little kids blocks sitting on a platform, then when you pull one of the blocks out, then everything would collapse up. Except no, I'm wrong. If you did have a bunch of kids' blocks sitting there on a platform, you pulled one out, they wouldn't close up. And this was exactly the problem. So what we did was we took this concept of the blocks on a platform and we put it at an angle. And when you put the blocks at an angle and you take one of the blocks away, they do close up because of gravity.
You know, the magnetic timeline was very disorienting for about 10 minutes, and then you realize how brilliant it is.
Then you suddenly get it. And once you pass that point, it's fine.
Anyway, the magnetic timeline, that's how it works. And I loved Brad Olson, friend of mine. He directed and produced that film. I helped pay for it, so I got a title, whatever. That's all I did. It's just that people didn't want to change the way they thought about things. And they also had, millions of dollars in infrastructure that they didn't want to change. And that's why Avid is still used in the last vestiges of, the big Hollywood machine that's dying out and choking out, because they have huge amounts of money invested in that stuff. I think that's the short answer of
all the modern ones, more modern ones though, are all NLEs, right? Oh.
Well, they're all nonlinear editors. Nobody's editing still on tape in a linear fashion, if that's what you mean.
Well, I mean, depending on which button you push, DaVinci behaves the same way.
Right. So isn't the cut page the same on DaVinci Resolve as the magnetic timeline is on?
Let's hold off on the cut page for 1 second, Courtney, but that is a discussion to have. The point that Peter is making is, yes, if you hit the right button, it will delete and ripple. It will lift and ripple. But what the default setting in all edit systems 10 years ago was, when you cut a clip, it just left a hole. If you were really smart, you knew how to cut and ripple. You knew how to paste and ripple, where it would paste it in and push everything down. But those were complex, sometimes double or triple modifiers on the keyboard that you had to know. And if you didn't know those, you didn't get the benefit of being able to push things around quicker. What Final Cut did is they made the default cut and the default paste and the default cut, well, not copy so much, to be the more advanced setting of rippling and deleting and pushing down and stuff like that. And that broke people's heads for some reason. Even advanced editors, they just didn't want to do it. To Courtney's point, yes, Courtney, I do think, and I don't know for certain because I've never played with it, but allegedly some of that magnetic property is a part of the cut page in the Resolve.
And one of the things I did early on, you probably shoot me for this,
I don't care,
Chris, is when you first install DaVinci the first time, it asks you do you want to use the native,
the keyboard shortcuts,
or the Final Cut shortcuts, or Premiere Pro shortcuts.
So what did you do?
Final Cut, because I didn't want to. My muscle memory was already intact that way.
So I just recorded another episode of the Final Cut Grill this morning with Jeff Greenberg, and he told a story about how there's a pretty famous editor in the community. His name is Scott Simmons. He's a good friend of mine. And Scott is completely ambidextrous. He can cut on any app, and he jumps between the big ones all the time. And Scott remaps all of his keyboards, so every time he sits down, the keyboard shortcuts are the same for whatever app they're doing. And Jeff Greenberg actually said he thinks that that's a bad idea, that he would rather lean into the logic behind the people that wrote the app and said, they probably did this for a good reason, and maybe it's up to me to figure out why they did it. You can go both ways on that. It doesn't really matter. Courtney, did you have something you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I was going to point out why Hollywood stayed with the slug-in leader when you remove something. Because in the original world of actual film editing, where you cut the stuff up and you spliced it together, you had audio tracks to deal with, and you had to keep the audio tracks in sync. And a lot of times the editor will come in and say, "Oh, we got to cut out these 3 shots because the network won't agree to these, and substitute these other 2 shots that are different length at the last minute." Well, with if you're just bringing everything else up, you've got 72 soundtracks that are in 35 millimeter that you now have to go through and remove a certain number of frames from each one of those tracks and make sure that there's no sound overlapping those frames that you pull out. And you're talking about 3 days worth of work to pull out that one shot.
Right.
So this is why there was a little hesitance to use the magnetic cut, and still, it's going to create problems to keep all your sound in sync if you've already edited soundtracks to go along with your cut.
It becomes a bigger issue if you have a piece of music that's anchored at the beginning of the timeline and you're rearranging stuff. However, there's a lot of places where it's hugely beneficial because Alexander, when in Final Cut, there's no such thing as a clip collision. What Courtney's talking about, when you pull a thing out, you have to collapse these together. If this dialogue is on track 1 and this dialogue is on track 1, it may not collapse because of a clip collision. And Final Cut will just go, yeah, no, okay, I'm just going to overlap those. I'll let you fade it out, but I'm just going to. There's no such thing as a clip collision when it comes to that. Let's. I'm not trying to make this a Final Cut show. I actually have a whole show on the YouTube about that, which you're more than welcome to go look at, Final Cut Grill. But let's move on to the next question.
All right, next one comes in from Houston, Texas. Robert A. Ober asks, anybody try the 2026.4 version of Pro Tools? If so, are there bugs?
So, Robert, I'll also mention you come back on Wednesday morning because we have like the whole audio nerd team. But Alexander has something to say.
Well, I rarely install new updates unless there's a specific feature that I need. I stay reasonably up to date with Pro Tools. I am a Pro Tools user. I've been using it for a little over 25 years now. I am on some flavor of the 2025 update, but haven't installed this yet. All software, Robert, has bugs, so it's just a matter of your tolerance for, like, if you run into specific issues, is it something that's an impediment to your workflow? But I think a lot of Pro Tools issues, to be honest with you, a lot of the complaints that I see on social media every time Avid does an update, you can pretty much place a bet you're going to see a huge stream of comments that's saying, "Oh, it's missing this," or "It's missing that," or you haven't added anything new exciting to it. So Pro Tools for me has been quite stable. I use an approved operating system. I tend to use the computer that runs Pro Tools as an appliance, and it's really important, like many specialized professional tools, to make sure that you're following the recommendations of the vendor as far as what software to install on that computer, what operating system to have, what the system minimum requirements are. All that stuff, you got to pay attention to that, making sure that your plugins are up to date and compatible if you're using third-party plugins, because things can quickly destabilize the system. We know as soon as you start using AAX plugins that are aftermarket or not what ship with Pro Tools. I mean, let's face it, pretty much everybody's using plugins these days because the plugins that ship with Pro Tools are extremely small and limited. And so they're serviceable, don't get me wrong, but many of us use third-party plugins from other manufacturers like Waves and Isotope and all that sort of stuff. So you do have to keep track of that stuff, and sometimes it can be a little bit daunting. But in my personal experience, it's a long way to go about saying that Pro Tools for years, for me, has been pretty darn stable. Chris, you're muted.
Let's go to the next question, and I forgot who's reading.
That's me.
Sorry, Courtney.
How's that short-term memory doing for you?
Oh, it's awful.
Okay. I know the feeling. Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas says, Courtney, can you go through all the ports on your Rodecaster Video S and explain how to set them up and what they can do and can't do?
What they can and can't do. Let's make this a brief overview. I don't want to turn this into a Rodecaster tutorial, because actually we do have a lot of questions stacking up.
Yeah, in answer to your question, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go to, this is the setup program that you get, and this you can, from the setup page here, you can control your frame rate, your switching, what type you want to use, instant or studio, which is whether or not you hit the. It will use a transition to the next button you hit when you hit that button, or if you want to hit the button to load it into preview, and then you hit the enter button to go to it.
That's weird terminology for that.
Yeah, and this also has you can set your codec, your program quality, and your frame rate up here. I'm at 30 because apparently Mimo Live can't handle 60. And what outputs you can choose. The outputs are selected up here, and so you can just choose any of the inputs that you have available. I use camera 2 on HDMI, so that's what I'm using so I can see this screen that you're looking at now. And the USB 1 is what goes out to Zoom, and I don't have anything set to NDI, so that's basically how I program the outputs, of course. And then there is the scene builder, which you can go to, which gets you into that unless you're in this mode here. Look, there I am.
Okay.
So that's a brief overview, and you can program each of these buttons to do different things in different.
And it has a physical panel also as well, correct?
Yeah, it has basically what you see here in these 5 buttons here, and these buttons over here, which determine what those 5 buttons do. Either they're going to play back media. If you click the media button, then it'll plays back media. This is the overlay button. This is the, I don't know what that is.
Okay, so let's go to the next question then, and you could do it from right in this screen if you can see the next question, or I'll read it.
Oh, I can see the next question. That's
okay, so because this might be the answer to the next question. Go.
Mark Britton from Three Rivers, Michigan, is it? Yes. Starting up a new high school media class morning announcements podcast, sports and green screen setup. Budget is $2,000 for a switcher. Thoughts on the switcher?
What do you think, Alexander? Could the thing that whatever this thing is called, Rodecaster Video Plus
That's exact. You just took you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to recommend the Rodecaster Video. I think the for what they charge for that, for the bigger 4 input one, as long as you don't need more than 4 inputs, I think that's probably the better way to go. I don't recommend the ATEM mini ISO line. I doubt the school is going to have the budget for the G2, the bigger G2. And the reason why I don't recommend them is because they don't handle audio well. You don't have balanced inputs. So I would recommend the Rodecaster because of that. You have balanced 2 analog microphone preamps. They can be mic or line level, and that's what I would suggest as someone that just wants to learn how to do this stuff. It's great for people that just want to do a multicam podcast, understand how to do switching and all that sort of stuff, and learn the terminology between cut bus, preview bus, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. Guy, what's your thought, Mr. Ex-hardware sales guy?
And software sales guy. So it just depends. So this is a big it depends question. Really coming from being a former reseller of the NewTek TriCaster, the Blackmagic, vMix. So it really does depend. And I know, Chris, you've been a big advocate for just going free and talking about OBS for your show. OBS would actually be a contender. One of the things, though, if you're using green screen, built into these ATEM minis and that lineup is the technology that they bought from Ultimat. Kids are a lot more forgiving as to the quality. So I would probably not put that as the holy grail, because you have sports in there and you've got podcasts and you've got other things, but be aware that even a basic mini has the Ultimat keyer inside. The NewTek TriCaster software, you could either go monthly, or they have a buyout where you could buy it for $2,500. So if you already have a PC and you could get a little more money, a TriCaster used to cost a lot more money. So being able to just do a software version and buy it outright might be something where you scrounge up, have a car wash or something like that. This is where the Facebook group, I'll put a link in the chat. There's a high school AV teachers group, and there's like 20,000 people in there, and it's very robust.
Wow.
And I saw a really nice setup where it was just 3 of the OBSBot the $400 cameras that have the 1/2-inch sensor. So my question would be, what cameras are you using? Because to recommend a Rodecaster, how are you bringing those cameras in? Is it USB-C? Right. Because the Rodecaster can bring in those. Are your cameras NDI? Are they SDI? Are they HDMI? Because if I recommend vMix, now all of a sudden you still need a powerful PC, and then you need the way to bring the video in versus having a hardware switcher. Yeah. You have that pretty well taken care of, unless you want to buy some cheap switches. Yeah,
that really does become the key thing. Is the camera have a HDMI out? Does it have, are you doing the OBSBot thing where it's all USB? And there's some advantages. And that's part of the reason why I use OBS, because it makes it drop dead simple for me to grab a window and say, make that a source, because it's all just in the box. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Okay.
Okay. Courtney?
Yeah, I was going to answer one thing about this high school thing is, if you buy now, I just checked, and I don't know, the Video S, which is the one that I have, which is, I showed you the 5 buttons. The bigger brother to that is the one that used to sell for $1,200. But right now, if you buy now, operators are standing by. Oh, sorry. That's not
that's not a product. That's your storeroom.
Look, it's $809. That means, and 99 cents. Oh no, $809. It's only $9 more expensive than the smaller version, the Video S. The Video S is $799 when it's not on sale, and this one, I think they're trying to blow them out somewhere. This is on Amazon, available for the current as $809. So that's a good deal, because the thing with the Rodecaster Video has going for it is kind of like some of the stuff that Guy was talking about, the advantage, or was it Alexander, about software switcher, because this does support NDI. So you can bring in up to 3 NDI feeds into that hardware switcher. It gives you a hardware switcher. The disadvantages to the Rodecasters is the green screens, not that great and not that adjustable. It does do automatic green screen, but it tries to make it so easy and so quick and easy that you lose a lot of the adjustability that you do have when you go to, the high-end Blackmagic keyers. So take that into consideration. Also, it's the method of switching is not the same with the bank controls over what you want to look, whether you're just going to preview something or whether you're going to switch to it or whether you're going to play media. A lot of those buttons overlap in function, which is not the way a real television switcher works. So it's great for influencers, not so good for people that want to learn, commercial type switching for if you're going to go into a TV station or a television studio, a real television studio, and try and learn a switcher that way. The Blackmagic switchers are much closer to what you'd find at Ross or Sony or, any of the bigger hardware switchers.
There's a lot to be said for learning the process in addition to the result. Let's go to the next question.
From Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When should the caption pages be advanced for an audience that is speaking or singing?
Josh. This was just a discussion we were having before the air, before we went live, and I think he was worried that we weren't going to have enough questions. I'm going to request, let's pause on this one. At the end of the hour, if we have time, we'll come back to it. This could be an hour, I think. At least a solid 5 minutes. Let's go to the next question.
From Carmi Weitzing, and there it is, in Redondo Beach, California. So Carmi says, has anyone used the DishTC timecode boxes? And if so, how did you like them? Also, what other timecode sync boxes do you like?
Hey, Carmi, how you been? I haven't. Courtney seems to know something. Courtney, what do you know?
Well, timecode has been getting cheaper and cheaper. I've always used the Denekis because I knew Mike Deneke really well, and I have a I have serial number 001 of the GR1 master timecode clock. So I have that. But there's Tentacle, which is a cheaper version. Temperature compensated crystal oscillators for timecode generators have gotten a lot cheaper. They're now built into some of these $300 recorders, even some of the $600 recorders like the Zoom F series have good temperature compensated crystal clocks in it for keeping time code. So any one of them can do it once you jam them for, the, I think Movie Slate has some, and Tentacle are the ones that most influencers use because they last a long time. They're a small little box. You can plug them into your analog audio inputs on the most DSLR cameras with a mic level time code signal and get things in sync that way. Plus, they have LTC at 1 volt that lets you lets you jam professional cameras as well.
Guy?
Yeah, I like these ones here from Deity. You could buy a 3-pack of the Deity, and then it comes with all the cables. So in the box, just so that there's no surprises, you get the Limo, you get 1/8-inch mini, you get BNC. So you get all those included, whereas some of those might cost you an arm and a leg, or you might have to rent one of those cables if you don't own it already. So this one's been good to me. It's got you basically set one up as the leader, and then the rest is followers, and or you could jam from one of their slates. Pretty cool system for not much money.
Let's go to the next question, Courtney.
Next one comes in from Kyle Harmon in Chicago, Illinois. My HDMI out on my ATEM Mini quit working. Should I get another, or is there a compelling reason to go another route for camera switching my show? 4-camera setup at my home bar.
Kyle, my question is, were you using it as a place to output it and to record it, or were you just using it to look at it? If you were just looking, first of all, you're asking the exact question. Is there something that's compelling enough to take my money again? You may be able to limp along until you find what you want by just using the USB out and putting it on a monitor. You can open it up in, you could do what I do, put it into OBS and look at the output. I never use the HDMI output of my ATEM. I'm just using it to convert stuff into webcam speak, whatever that's called. So that might be one thing that you can do. Alexander, what's your thought?
Well, in general, I'm a fan of making attempts to repair equipment because most gear these days can be repaired and should be repaired, and I'm not a fan of electronics waste. With Blackmagic, I would actually attempt to call their support department and see if that they are willing to try to help you troubleshoot that issue, and if they can, I don't know if this is a possibility, but to maybe sell you some parts, like if they can sell you the logic board for that thing, if it does come to replacing the whole logic board, is that something they can sell you, and then you can just install it yourself if you feel comfortable doing that? If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then I would try to find out through Blackmagic who the local authorized repair people are, if they have a preferred repair depot where you can send it to without having to send it to the other side of the country or wherever it's got to go for repair.
I'll also say it's highly likely that this. I've heard Mr. Lindsay talk about it with a lot of the ATEM stuff. The ports are actually soldered right to the motherboard, and maybe just the active.
Their surface mount to the board. Yes.
Right. So just plugging it in and out, you may have just worn that out. It may just be a matter of just heating up some solder that's already there. Courtney, you have one last thing you wanted to say about this?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And it might be, at the price of the ATEM Mini Pro, if it's not an ISO, if it's just ATEM Mini Pro, it's cheaper just to buy a new one probably, and use the old one for one that doesn't have an HDMI output, and use the new one and use it to feed things into.
But I like what you're thinking, Kyle, in terms of, is there something compelling, not just, go get another one. There may be a good thing to do. Courtney, let's go to the next question. Oh, gee, it's for me again. Good grief. Go ahead.
Oh, boy. From Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Mr. Fenwick.
Yes.
I watched the reboot of the Final Cut Grill on YouTube.
Good choice. Good choice.
How are you managing the technical side of the production? And are there any roadblocks that you ran into that you didn't anticipate? And how did you overcome them?
I'll give you the briefest of explanations, Alexander. I'm doing it all in OBS because I'm cheap. I'm not using Zoom ISO because I'm cheap. I do have an HD Zoom account because I have it for work. And one of the cool things about OBS, and I'll just say this, and I sent Alex Lindsay a text message the other day, and I said, hey, I want you to know I'm taking over the office hours community. I'm going to turn everybody onto OBS and tell them to get rid of their ATEMs. and then I said, that's my strategy to get you to quit Apple and come back because you're going to be turning in your grave. But one of the nice things about OBS is it allows me to capture a window even if I can't see that window. So I use Zoom in a 2-up mode, which everybody should, and I pin my guest to the second display, and it's behind a bunch of other crap on my laptop. I literally cover it with other things, and then I use the capture window scene in OBS to go grab the signal off of that window, and I bring it into OBS as a source. My camera is a USB camera. It just plugs in. And then I'm literally just recording it. I will say that the audio, and I know that you're an audio-centric dude, the audio was not an insignificant task to solve. But I did it on After Hours a couple of days ago with Jerry, and he was helping me, do some testing remotely and stuff. But I would say that if people really are interested, I think I could do literally a whole hour in After Hours someday, some morning, and walk through it step by step. People were interested when I did my audio stuff, so I'm only going to say it like that. But I'm doing it. My goal is to do it for zero cost. And so far I am. And I did, on the interview I did with Greenberg today, I was even able to get a picture-in-picture of Jeff's face in a little box next to his screen in a big box. And I did it all with OBS and a 1080 version of the Zoom. Do you have any specific questions, Alexander?
I think that pretty much
or is this
covers
just a softball to fill time again?
It was part of that, but I kind of just wanted to talk to you about the audio because I listened to that episode, and I don't know what happened with Alex's audio, but his mic was completely
it was crap. Yeah, so let me tell you what happened. So that's the simplest answer to me. So I have a thing about this is interviewing 101. I have a thing about interviews. I don't like to talk to somebody too much before I do an interview with them. I would rather know nothing about you before I put you on a show because I want to get to know you in the same way that the audience is. I don't want to take anything for granted. So, and I know Goldner, I've interviewed him a dozen times. But when he got on, I go, hey, Alex, hold on. I have to adjust I have to set up a couple things. Don't say anything. I want everything to be fresh. Huge mistake. I should have. And this was the first interview I did solo on my own, and I didn't get a level from him. So I start the thing, and I'm like going, oh, crap, he's distorting. And it took me like 4 minutes before I went, I got to fix this. And I found an edit point in my head. And the other thing is I don't want to edit the show, but I found an edit point in my head, and I went, okay, Alex, stop. You're overmodulating. He goes, oh, that's because I was doing something on some other, and he went and he adjusted something. I go, okay, much better. Okay. And it still wasn't great, but it was much better. At about 4 minutes, it does get better. You may not have watched that far.
I watched the whole thing.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate your click. Did you notice that it got any better?
It did get marginally better, yeah.
I would say marginally too.
Look, I'm an audio engineer, so like
I appreciate it.
What's happening?
The bigger issue is that at some point in the interview, Zoom took a chunky hit, and he was out of sync for the last half of the thing, which was super annoying. But my attitude about that show is I would rather do the show bad than not do the show good, if that makes sense, because I don't have a lot of time to put into it. I do have a job. I still sit here 10 hours a day editing things for clients, and that's just spare time. And if I put too much work into it, it's just not going to get done. And so I think I might coin that term. I'd rather do the show bad than not do the show good. And that's my whole point. It's like, yeah, you know what? Get over it. Get over yourself. It's not perfect. Whatever. It's YouTube. It's color. It moves. Anyway, next question.
Comes in from north of the border, from Roz McNulty in Vancouver, Canada. I did a project, a spatial video edit with my original Final Cut and with the new Final Cut Creator app. And the Creator version worked better. Why? Why? Inquiring minds want to know.
That's super interesting, Roz. So I'm curious, when you say original Final Cut, those of us have used it for 20 years plus, oh, okay, 25 years. My mind, I'm immediately going to Final Cut 7. And I think you mean Final Cut 10, or what I call Final Cut Lifetime, the one that you bought for $300 that you never have to pay to upgrade, versus the Creator Studio version. I think that's.
Is there a Creator app that runs on iOS that we're could be talking about?
I don't believe so. No.
For creators, you know, for
well,
YouTube
there are
influencers.
Oh, God, good grief. There might be. So, Roz, we would have to know more. And if what you're saying is that you're sitting at a desktop and Final Cut 10 with the colored, the multicolored icon versus Final Cut Creator Studio with the purple icon, if you're saying those two versions work different, I'm super interested, and send us a message, okay? I'll be here Wednesday morning. Come back and send us a message. I'm super curious about that. Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes in from a Mr. Guy Cochran here on the panel. What's the secret to good sound? I happen to have a company with that name.
Softball guy? Alexander?
There is no secret.
Let's keep in mind we're getting toward the top of the hour too.
Everything that you need to know about how to get good sound is completely documented. There's tons of books out there. You know, there's lots of people you can learn from that have a lot of experience, and you know, it's always something that it's a continual lifelong journey of getting better at your craft and always learning and making mistakes and then not doing those mistakes again. I'm just going to give one quick example because we're running out of time. This is probably a good question for Wednesdays too. Let's forget studio recordings, because studio recordings, very controlled environment. You're recording basically a laboratory environment. So I'm assuming, Guy, that you're probably talking about live sound, because that's quite a lot of what you end up doing even in your own time with House of Worship stuff. So with live sound, basically, let's forget about the talent. Obviously, you got to start with really good talent, good performance. Now, that could be anything from someone that's good at giving a speech and telling a story with a simple microphone on their head, to a pop act, to a rock band. It doesn't really matter. So you always start with that, right? So always have good mics. Mic placement is incredibly important. A really good PA system that is deployed properly and tuned properly. And then, of course, EQ, and understanding the principles of EQ, the fundamental harmonics of a lot of the instruments that are being used, and how to ameliorate most problems. And I would say that if you want to learn about sound, once you have good microphones and you understand basic techniques, learn your high pass and your low pass filtering, because those are two of the, if you could just have anything, like any two things, it's your high pass and your low pass filter are incredibly important, and those will really, really serve you well. And I don't want to spend more time on this because this is kind of like an hour-long discussion.
Courtney, secret to good audio.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on whether you're doing live sound or whether you're doing production sound that's going to be edited in post. But there are two guidelines that you are almost always want to deal with is proper gain staging. In other words, having the microphone preamps adjusted correctly so you don't overmodulate and you don't undermodulate, and then signal to noise ratio. Those two things are crucial for good sound. Especially in post-production, you want the highest signal to noise ratio you get because, they're going to add in all kinds of background sounds later. And the less background noise that is not part of the dialogue that you're trying to capture, the better and the smoother the edit goes. As you edit together the close up from 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock in the evening, the background sounds may change quite a bit, and you're going to hear that cut because the background sound changes, even though you're using the same microphone in the same place and the same actor. If the background sound changes, you're going to hear the cut. So you're going to have to edit all that out. There is noise removal now that can eliminate a lot of that automatically. I do not use any type of equalization if I'm recording production dialogue, because I record everything flat and I leave it up to the engineers in post to tune the mics and tune the characters and tune the scene with whatever equalization they need to make it work in the cut. Because if you pre-equalize everything and burn that equalization in, it's tough to get it back without adding noise or adding distortion or adding more trouble in post-production. So if you're doing live sound, different story. You want to try and match everything as you can. I try and do as little equalization as necessary to eliminate feedback and to make the people sound good and not muffled, or you try and eliminate any artifacts that you're hearing from the microphone, the distance that the person is from the microphone, etc. So a few things to consider as we run up toward the end of the hour, but it depends. Live sound completely different from production sound, which is edited later.
Okay, so content suggestions. We only have a couple hands up, and 2 of them are mine. Peter, what's your content suggestion for the end of the show?
So I stumbled upon an interesting little YouTube video. It's about an hour and a half long, but it's from Amsterdam. It's the history of Python and how Python as a programming language was developed. Remember, Chris, I started my life as a programmer. So I find, this is the geeky thing I geek out on. But I find myself using Python more and more these days to automate things. Even when I'm doing stuff with, whether it's Mimo Live, I've even found a way to automate some things in Final Cut using Python. Right?
I want to have a party at Peter's house and go through his watch history. Alexander.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend this movie. Now, I thought I've seen every movie that Sean Connery's ever done, but Arrow, which I'm a big fan of, they're a great physical media company and a good preserver of films, put out this awesome 4K version of Outland from 1981, directed by Peter Hyams, and it is a 4K restoration done from the original.
Were you even born yet, Alexander?
He was not.
I was born in 82. Doesn't matter.
He was not.
Age has nothing to do with appreciation of good films. So
sometimes it does.
4K restoration from the original 35 millimeter HDR 10 color grade, and I enjoyed this movie much more than I expected. Connery plays a kind of blue collar guy that's sent to this mining facility called Io, which is orbiting Jupiter, and it's kind of like this dystopian future where it's all about productivity and everything's run by a big corporation, and then I don't want to spoil the. Is it a spoiler if I say anything about the?
It's okay, Alexander. I saw that the year I graduated from high school in the theater.
Anyways,
I was going to say I saw it in the theaters.
It's a good-looking movie. It comes with this great full-size poster, which is reversible. So it's got the original movie poster here, and this is the newly commissioned artwork. Try not to hit my mic. So it's got that, and then it's got this great booklet. This is the kind of thing that if you're into physical media, that companies like Arrow do, where you get a booklet and you get all these great new articles, and it talks about the production. It's got photos, stills from the movie and stuff like that. So if you're a movie nerd, I recommend that release.
Can you imagine Alexander with liner notes from the 80s? Let's go to the next one, Courtney.
Well, in tribute to the fact that today is Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you.
Be with you. Adam Savage at Tested released a new video, one yesterday, one today, I think, that is interview with Jon Favreau about the Mandalorian and Grogu, the new feature film that is kind of Star Wars feature film that is hitting theaters shortly. And it's this giant Quonset hut, which is where they did this interview. And there's two of the Disneyland droids. I forget the BD7. I don't know which number they are, but they're these new little animated, really, droids that are actually robotic droids that actually wander the area around the Star Wars exhibit. I mean, the Star Wars ride at Disneyland. But this is actually part of the set from one of them. This giant Quonset hut that they do this interview in is in Los Angeles. And it was part of Howard Hughes actually built that. And it's down in Playa del Rey, which is where they shot a lot of this. This is the only film, The Mandalorian and Grogu, that was shot, Star Wars film that was shot in Los Angeles. So it bears that. And there's two of these videos, one that has to do with the droids and another one has to do with behind the scenes of all the stuff that is gathered together in this giant Quonset hut warehouse down there, all the Star Wars paraphernalia. And it's great to take a little trip through all the previous Star Wars programs.
I wonder if Howard Hughes made parts to the Spruce Goose there. Guy, your choice, your pick?
Yeah, this one's super geeky and not for everyone, but I'm going to show it anyway. It's this guy figured out that there's a USB port that's called remote control on the back of a Behringer X32, and he just went down this rabbit hole of figuring out how he could install Linux on a Behringer X32. And the mindset of how he goes through it and figures it out is just fascinating for anybody who wants to sniff out some code and figure out how to do this with other devices. So the channel is Chris Noting, and he's got a couple different things where he's talking about neural networks on a Behringer X32. So I don't know if he's going to put in a new ARM chip or what he's going to wind up doing, more RAM or something to take this 15-year-old mixer and turn it into something that can use defeedback. And it's pretty fascinating that somebody came up with doing this. But 28,000 views on this one and 78,000 views on the Linux one. Pretty fascinating.
Isn't it amazing when you look at stuff on YouTube and you go, good grief, a lot of people watch this, when you think it's completely out there. My pick is simple. Please check out it. If you enjoyed some of the discussion about Final Cut, you may enjoy some of the stuff that we're doing on the Final Cut Grill on the new YouTube channel. Check that out. And if you're not into that, you should definitely watch the Miami Grand Prix race from this last weekend. It was fantastic, really a lot of fun. And anyway, that's it. Is there anything? Yes, there is some stuff I'm supposed to be talking about. Had we gotten in planes and flown around the planet here to do everything that we did, I have some stats here. Before I say that, I just want to say Grant will be back. Next week will be better, I'm sure. The Tlaloc traversal for this episode 2232, good grief, it would be 13,000 miles, 21,000 kilometers, and 104 million SM58s for scale, if they're the same size as a banana. Goodbye. And fade out.
Is that with switch or without switch?
Good. Go to